like my work to be that people should relate to it. And it's encouraging when people laugh at what some of the images have produced.
I love the fact that people walk past it. I've had lots of lovely comments from people who have noticed and liked or wondered about it. And that's the greatest compliment anyone can give you, I think, is that especially that they would wonder. I think, you know, because that's a great word and we don't maybe wonder enough.
I would see the paintings as an enabling thing, enabling people to feel and to touch maybe things in their own lives.
The university building provides so variety of spaces, different characters, many courtyards and entrance.
The context of the community that you have in Stirling, where you have students obviously and then the staff, it is an ideal opportunity to get a really wide range of feedback from different people.
Not many folk get to say, I work in an art gallery, which is effectively true. I certainly stop at one or two paintings each day. Actually brightens your day, particularly if it's raining. And things like these, Willie Rogers stuff. The one at the end, Sisyphus, is kind of the unofficial logo of the School of Arts and Humanities, perpetually pushing the stone up the hill. I hope our masters won't object, although the other two are quite metaphorical as well. So there's plenty of pictures that speak to quite a lot of us.
When I'm working here, sometimes everything's silent. I don't have any music on, and other times I have classical music, and other times I have jazz, and it can depend on the weather too. You know, I should be outside in the garden on a day like this. No, get this done first, and then go out to the garden. In primary one at school, when the school was quite near the Forth and Clyde Canal, and my best friend was very knowledgeable about the boats on the canal. And one day in primary one we drew a drawing of a puffer. So I did my drawing and he did his drawing, other people did their drawing. And to my great annoyance, his picture was put up on the wall and mine wasn't. I thought, so it was an incentive at an early age to say, I want to be an artist, and I haven't put my picture up. So eventually my picture was put up in various places, etc. But no, I'm just an ordinary bloke that enjoys the family very, very much, love them dearly, enjoy the garden, enjoy friendships, and enjoy my painting and printmaking. I never really thought of myself as an artist. I was Anne's husband, I was a children's daddy, I was a teacher to pupils, and being an artist just happened to be parallel to that. A kind of an idea for a print or a painting that just suddenly appears, and I'll get a piece of scrap here, just write it down and to be worked on at a later date. Anything that I try to force doesn't work. It's got just to appear in its right time. The books here, here's one of Paris. And I just enjoyed doing some detailed drawing like the Garden Nord, which is a challenge to arrange all the shapes in this small page That gives me great satisfaction. It's like probably playing a musical instrument and all the notes are right and the timing's right and the sense is right. There are a lot of things going on that we don't know about, and the spiritual thing is there. That's why I'm not afraid of dying, because I believe in a further life, although I don't think you want to boast about it in case it's not. I don't know. I have my quiet moments. Which we all should have, and just you and your maker, you know. I've got an awful lot to be thankful for. So before the day of judgment comes along, I just go on with the artwork.
It's actually nice because when you're going from A to B, you can look at them all. You can work your way along the corridors and look at each picture and either decide whether you do or don't like them. A lot of it I like, but there is the odd one that I'm not particularly fussed on, but that's art, isn't it? I think it broadens your knowledge because you look and you see and you look who's drawn them and it just brightens the workplace. Makes it a nicer place to be.
You know, it is a kind of dream, actually. It's inspired by a poem by Kathleen Jamie called The Bower. And it's quite a short poem. It's a beautifully formed thing, and I think of it as a thing. And so I felt from the first time I read it, I knew I had to make some kind of response to it, but sometimes it can take me quite a while to know what. She talks about it listing deep, and that, to me, I mean, that just makes me feel at home when I hear that phrase. I like to use text as a material as well, but I'm using less of it, and I'm using it in a more considered way in more recent work. And so the text just says, and listing deep, but it's almost something that you could miss when you first look at the painting or the piece, and that's intentional. It's not that it's an afterthought, it's that it's not meant to be shouting at you. It's like being whispered almost. So it is painted, but it's layered up with other things. And so it's layered up with fragments of leaves and who knows what else. Gauze, tissue paper, fragile things actually, but to me they're very powerful things. So I've got lichen and poppy petals and leaves and all kinds of things. And so they're waiting to be used. And I know exactly when the time is right. But I have to get them all out and have a look at them all. And there's a palette and a texture that I'm looking for. And I sometimes get very inspired too by the impression that they've made in the book. And that can be, sometimes I'll tear that page out and use the whole thing because the impression is as nice. It can take a long time. There's a kind of seeking and finding process. So they are the inspiration, actually, the natural forms, and that's where I connect a lot. And I think it's why I connect so much with Kathleen Jamie's poems, because really they're centred in the natural world and our relationship with it. And so she paints with the words, and I, in a way, paint with with natural forms that I've gathered, but I create a context for them. I love being exhibited at Stirling. It's great. It's a really good honour, and to be amongst all these, you know, sort of, well, artists whose work I had known about. They're part of the canon, if you like, and so it's really good, and that doesn't happen actually all that often. I think because it's a place of work as well, and there are people going by, probably pass it lots of times in a day, that they will see it over time. My work isn't created with this intention, but everybody says that it reveals itself in new ways the more they look at it. The way that I use materials and the way that I do layer them up. I suppose the act of doing that creates things that even surprise me, and they are absolutely not intentional. In the same way that a poet perhaps knows that another person's reading of their work is going to reveal things that they hadn't thought of, then this happens to me as well when people view my artworks, be they the paintings or the collages or the poem houses, because yes, you create something that's more than yourself, and more than you can even know, and that's an amazing thing to get to do.
I was very surprised. I did not expect that. In fact, we moved over from another building, and it was a real chance to see the artwork. And every day it sort of takes me a different route. Depending on which way I move to my office, I walk to my office, I can see a different piece. And the sculptures in the corridors. So everywhere you are, you're surrounded by art. I notice them all the time, and sometimes depending on how the light falls, if there is light, if there is sunshine, you can see sort of different shapes. And there's some in particular outside in the square, and I'm here on Sundays sometimes, and it's very quiet, and I look out and I say, oh, there's somebody just standing out in the snow, why would they be doing that? But it's a sculpture, so that's quite neat. It's startling, it's something different, unexpected.
Sculpture, to be sculptor is something special. You work with real materials, with interesting ideas, you research of society, history, science, whatever you name it, then you make something by yourself, and the whole process is all yours, or mine, I must say. So I'm genuine sculptor, which I am and which I want to be.
From being a very small child, one of my favourite things anywhere in the world was the Degas ballerina in the National Gallery's collection. And I managed to talk the guard into actually letting me touch it. So he just said very tactfully, I'm going to be investigating the other room, and I'll be gone for 10 minutes. I won't be able to see what you're doing. The idea of this was really, almost came from a kind of Japanese fan and the way it folds out. But then I also just like the way that by folding the shape like this, you get the light catching it in different ways. And then the reason for this was actually originally made as a pair to go at Mellestane House, and then they were on two pillars, and just behind them was an antique statue of Hermes, or Mercury, depending on whether you use the Greek or the Roman name. So I just was playing with the idea really of having this antique statue of a Greek god, of how could I represent them with totally modern pieces in order to fit in that environment. I think in a lot of ways, again, it's how the context changes with the different places quite interesting, because of course now that they're in Perthfoot, not necessarily the Greek side of it comes, or the Roman mythology side of it comes out at all, but then if anybody does find the title, then I think it might hopefully open a door of imagination of why on earth are they called Mercury and Hermes, and get people thinking a bit.
We work together quite a lot, but in a sense of making pieces for the same site. I mean, within our building, her piece comes in front, my piece goes to the back side, or going to the courtyard, or similar like in a Stirling University settings. A couple of occasions we did putting ideas together and just made one piece between us, from idea to completion, production completion.
And you're still married?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's a miracle.
It's amazing, isn't it? But he's actually much braver than I am, because he's a very good critic, and he will come into the studio and look at all my toys, all my maquettes, and tell me that they're simply not good enough. and I've got to what on earth am I doing, and I could do so much better. I tend to be a bit of a wimp because I'm not sure if I could get away with doing that.
Well, at the end, you always come back with a better idea, so it's worth pushing it.
What I like about this picture is I like the seascape, and it actually reminds me of being down visiting my parents on the on the Firth of Clyde, where you're looking out. If you're on the Esplanade, you're looking out across the Clyde. You can see Cumbria, you can see Bute, you can see Arran, and I'm almost expecting the Waverley to come past. There's something very calming about being by water, and again, quite often when I'm in a sort of visiting family in Lars, go out sailing, and it's great to be out on the water and just be completely detached from the land and those that are around you. You do go into a bit of a sort of quite a compact personal space. It's like a bubble, if you like. Where there's, with the exception of the people that are on the boat, nobody else is sort of close to you, and it gives you that, not solitude as such, but it does detach a bit from some of the sort of stresses and strains of everyday life. So it evokes all these feelings, this painting. I like the style of the building, the 1960s architecture, and I like the fact that you can walk through this big, long, wide corridor with lots of natural daylight, and you've got all these paintings that you can stop and look at.
Well, I don't know the corridor. I've never been in it, although I've heard about it. I'm a bit equivocal about how people look at pictures, and maybe look at my pictures. But I'm inclined to think, the post-impressionists and post-impressionist painters had this thing about the person who looks at the picture takes to the picture their own preconceptions and their own life and their whole life story, and that affects profoundly the way they look at the painting. This sounds affectation, but it's not. I'm not a fan of my own painting. I'm always dissatisfied. And but sometimes you do something and you think, that's okay. What did I do there? And I'm not very sure what I did, but there it is, And a lot of the time, the painting consists of working over an area and standing back and saying, oh, what the hell, lift it out and come at it again. It's a kind of trial and error, but it's like a conversation. It should be, in my mind, a conversation, a testing of what's happening here against what's happening there. Is that it? No, that's not it. Is that it? No, it needs that. Or that kind of thing. There's one. There's another one. There's a particular favourite. Now, those are dry, and I use them dry on the painting, and I move the paint about on the surface. And so I put the paint on very, very wet, running, and the darker parts are not quite so wet. And I use the dry brush to move it about to get the light and shade, or create the form, particularly creating the form. It's a very, very simple way of painting. It's a very straightforward, simple way. It goes direct from my sight through my arm and onto the panel. It's not built up bit by bit. It's there. If it's not there, it's out, and I try again. Oh, yeah, I mean, physically, yes. If you've been painting 4 hours outside in the the cold weather and here, it's hard work. But it's a good deal less harder than the bin man who was at the door today loading bins on. So that's not a consideration. The hard work is the conception, the thinking, the testing of ways of doing things. Will that work or will that work? We'll try that or try, But I think the best paintings that I do, and I'm not talking about this in an absolute sense, I'm talking about relative to all I do. The best things that I do are the ones which are done in one breath, as it were. That there's an overriding thought or an overriding concerted series of movements that come together like a sentence or like a stanza in a poem or like a passage of a Sibelius symphony or something, where it all seems to fit, be part of a totality. That, I would say, is, when that happens, that is satisfactory. That is something to enjoy.